Welcome to the webinar, Hybrid Multicloud, Your IT Superpower. My name is Eric Wallace with Argyle, and it's great to have everyone joining us today. I have a few administrative details to share with you, then we'll turn things over to our esteemed speaker. First, we'd like to thank Nutanix for their partnership with today's event. They've been wonderful partners to Argyle, and they're committed to providing you with valuable content and a great overall experience. Thank you again to Nutanix. We appreciate you joining us today. We also welcome you to stay socially connected during today's event. For those of you who are active on social media, please use the hashtag @ArgyleDigital and follow us at Argyle Exec Forum. Also be sure to follow Argyle on LinkedIn for special announcements. I also wanted to take a moment to touch on our content neutrality policy, which we've curated based on the feedback we've received over the years from our members. We have worked closely with our speaking faculty to ensure that you receive a set of balanced and neutral viewpoints during the session today, and we appreciate our member support of this policy. Finally, and most importantly, we want to hear from you, so please submit all questions that come up during today's event into the chat section of the interface. Following the discussion, we've set aside time for our speaker to weigh in on your questions. Now, without further delay, let's introduce our speaker and begin our presentation. Today, we're joined by Venugopal Pai, Chief Evangelist and Customer Experience Officer at Nutanix. Welcome, Pai. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Eric. And hello, everyone. Like Eric introduced, my name is Venugopal Pai. Over the next 40-50 minutes or so, I'll be introducing you to Nutanix and our direction and journey towards helping you drive a journey towards a hybrid multi-cloud world. And over the last 10, 12 years, as you've known Nutanix, we've evolved from a hyper-converged infrastructure company to selling software to help customers build a private cloud. And as the world has evolved into embracing public cloud, we evolved our strategy to embrace that same approach to delivering for you a unique way to build a hybrid multi-cloud approach and strategy. So let's get going. So when you look at the world back in 2012, there was a tug of war between, do I continue to own and manage and run data centers, or do I look at public cloud as an alternate way of computing and delivering applications? And as that world has evolved and public cloud has become a very, very big part of how customers are driving their transformation, it became into single cloud to multiple clouds. So as AWS and then Azure and then Google, and then we have quite a few players coming in and making it part of how we can help, how they can help you drive a transformation. The world has become more complex and it brings its own challenges, right? So as you look at your data center, you look at Nutanix, you look at VMware, and you look at trying to bring some level of simplicity to that world. But at the same time, you're challenged with now building in silos of developers and skill sets and credits and ELAs and security policies across all these different clouds. And so the world has become much more complex as you transform from a world of building applications running on VMs to modernizing applications using containers or native cloud applications. And so what we have seen is customers are living in multiple clouds, but they're not multi-cloud. And these multiple clouds are creating silos of cost and complexity. And so you have separate ELAs, separate developers, separate infrastructures. And as you build and modernizing these applications, you're realizing, and we're realizing, that multi-cloud, like multi-vendor, protects from lock-in. So you cannot take an application that's running in, say, AWS and put it into Azure. And so that ability for delivering what in the data center world was a multi-vendor approach is missing in the cloud world. And so where we come in is, as an organization, as a company, our fundamental mission has been to break down IT silos. So in the data center, we did that with compute, storage, networking, and virtualization to help you deliver the ability for delivering a single one-click private cloud in the data center. And that's become even more interesting from our customers, where in the last year or two, you've seen some market conditions where the primary partner to help drive that consolidation in the data center has become a target for an acquisition. And so we are becoming a very close alternative to provide an alternative approach to that stack. And so I urge you, if that's something that is top of mind or should be top of mind, we have built a completely private cloud stack to provide an alternative to VMware. But as we've built the company, there are 4 tenets that made us, unique in our approach. Number one is we want to make our customers' life simple. And going back to harking to the previous slide, is becoming more complex. At the same time, the choice of lock-in. So we want to give our customers freedom of choice. And that's been in the data center to give you freedom of choice of hardware, freedom of choice from hypervisors, and now freedom of choice from clouds. At the end of the day, it's about your data, which is no matter where your data is, our job is to protect it, move it, manage it, secure it. And we've never lost sight of that vision and that directive. And so that's been a true north where despite growing from 300 customers to 24,000 plus customers, that focus on data management, data security has never been lost. At the end of the day, customer delight, which is our NPS score of 90, has not wavered either. So when we were a startup to now with 24,000 plus customers, our NPS score of 90 has never changed. And that's been a really, really important part how when you become a customer, and if you are a customer, that's the ability for us to make sure that no matter what, we are there for you, irrespective of vendor interoperability, so on and so forth. And so at the end of the day, what we have done is built an entire business around it and transformed our customers to deliver a private cloud experience, at the same time embarking on the journey of how do I bring that simplicity back when I'm now living in a multiple cloud world. So we built a business with about $1.6 billion in revenue and the NPS score of 91. And as I mentioned earlier, our built-in hypervisor that's invisible and does what it does best, just like the public cloud, has grown significantly year over year. And so when we look at the world and we look at what's coming up ahead, is that complexity is creeping back in. Cloud interoperability is an area where we want to focus on. How do we want to break down these cloud silos to help our customers build that private cloud, embrace public clouds, and embrace data that's being more and more at the edge to enable you to help deliver the vision of almost like a one-click hybrid multi-cloud. And that's the journey we are on as a company, is just like we created this market that is now called hyper-converged infrastructure, we want to now embark on the market of creating a whole new segment around hybrid multi-cloud. And as you listen to us over the next 30, 40 minutes, we hope that reality comes true. So when we look at our customers, we talk to our customers, I spend almost 60, 70% of my time on the road meeting customers. They're looking at their applications saying, how do I modernize where I am today? Which is, if my application is running in the data center, how do I get the best experience, best price, best performance, best resiliency for that application? If I'm going to not own data centers, how do I run it in a co-location, in a hosted provider location? If I want to not own the application itself, then maybe I'm going to go to a SaaS world. Maybe I don't want to own the application or the infrastructure, right? If I want to take my workload and put it into public cloud, but I want to get it there as quickly as possible, then maybe it doesn't need to be refactored. You're lifting and shifting those workloads. And maybe you're going down the modernization apps journey where you're taking an application and containerizing it. But the containerization comes with some benefit, which is portability, flexibility, design for scale. But then in many times, what customers do, they go from the far left of the screen to the far right of the screen, which is, I have a cloud first policy. I'm going to take my applications and completely refactor them. But at the end of the day, are you going to really benefit from native cloud services? Are you going to benefit from the spikiness and unique capabilities that public cloud provides? And so as we look at our customers' journey, what we wanted is give them options, give them the freedom of lock-in, give them the freedom of choice, which is no matter where you are in the data center, we want to give you the freedom of choosing your hardware. And as recently as about a month ago, we launched our OEM partnership with Cisco, right? And that's brand new. That just came out about a month ago, right? If you want to not own a data center, we have about 250 plus service providers that we partner with globally. And we picked just a few to show our depth and breadth into partners who can deliver a hosted private cloud running on Nutanix for you and your applications. If you want to look at the public cloud, I'm going to talk you through how we can help you migrate workloads faster at lower cost when you're running on AWS and our Azure. And if you want to modernize the applications, you will hear from us on how we're helping you deliver a very, very compelling approach to build cloud-native applications while living in a multi-cloud world. And lastly, which of those applications truly benefit from public cloud, which is making a cautious and conscious decision to refactor those applications, keeping in mind that they're going to be there for the long term. And so our customers are saying, what is the right strategy for me? If I own the create new applications, I'm going to build them natively, and I'm going to modernize those applications. I'm going to build them natively in the public cloud. I'm going to make sure that that's going to stay there forever. I'm going to take my existing applications and decide where to retain them or to retire them. If I'm going to retain them, how do I help build a private cloud? If I'm going to modernize those applications, do I refactor those applications either to PaaS or to containers? Or if I'm going to burn down those Mac credits, I'm going to or AWS credits, I'm going to take those applications, move them there as quickly as possible, either rehosting them or lifting and shifting them. So the refactoring we've seen over the last few years talking to customers is that takes a long time. And so burning down those cloud commits forces you down the path of taking a workload and just lifting and shifting them, right? And so where we are coming and where we're hearing from customers is walking in and saying, we have a cloud first strategy. And the reason is I don't want to be the business of managing data centers because the illusion of data centers are expensive to manage and hard to manage. And sometimes the narrative is the only way to drive digital transformation is to move my workloads to public cloud. And so customers say, I have a cloud-only strategy in some cases, and evolving to a cloud-smart strategy. But in reality, what we're seeing more and more is intelligent workload placement, which is how do I make sure the workload is in the right place today at the right time with the right forensics, so that if something changes in the future, how do I make sure that I can reconsider my decision for the future? And that's where we're seeing very interesting conversation where customers that have gone down that cloud first path, signing these multi-million-dollar ELAs, mandating IT to move workloads, and maybe creating a parallel cloud team to now modernize these applications while the IT team traditionally runs the existing workloads in the data centers. And in some cases, what they actually do is they highlight, they sign up with global systems integrators to transform these applications, global integrators to infrastructure, data centers, and public cloud. And in many cases, we've seen customers set a timeline without any understanding of how long it takes to migrate those workloads over. And I'll give you some examples of some of the downsides of that decision of decommissioning data centers without clearly understanding what it takes to refactor and modernize these applications. And so as we've seen customers go down this journey over the last few years, we've seen some elements of concern, right? Which is, I have taken 2 applications, modernized them. It took me 12 months to do so at $1 million an app. This is a customer in Europe, right? I've decided to, over the next 2 years, I'm going to modernize 80% of my workloads without understanding it's going to take you years to modernize my applications. We signed with AWS and Azure, but we're struggling to drive value out of it because it just takes a long time to move the workloads. And at the same time, in the early days, going to cloud is a premium. Now, with interest rates being 6 to 7%, and the financial burden of the CFO now sharpening the pencils, cost governance, and spiraling cloud costs are becoming a reality as well. And so where we're coming in and saying is, how can we help our customers? And these are some examples where customers have gone down their cloud first journey, have realized that the AWS bill is now 400% over budget. And the CFO is now figuring out how do I now optimize my cloud experience. Some customers have said, I've moved my apps out of the data centers, but it's stalled because it's taking me long to refactor those applications. I have a customer that said, I'm in now 5 separate clouds, 5 separate silos. And I'll give you examples of what those 5 clouds are. How do I now burn down the cloud commits where I've signed on to a big ELA, for example, with Azure, and I cannot burn down my Mac credits because it's taking me a long time to refactor those applications. And in one case, just last week, I was on the East Coast where they said, I'm using AWS, but I'm starting to run out of EC2 instances. And so these are examples where we're going with customers and hearing that our cloud costs are now becoming a big area of concern. And this came out of a yearly survey that we do with a customer that we call Nutanix Enterprise Cloud Index. I'd urge you to go to our website and go look and download because it has a very, very valuable information and what our customers are telling us in terms of their cloud journey. And you start to see things in the press, which is, what do I do if my cloud is going out of control? My cloud costs are going out of control. Did I make the right decision? Why we're leaving the cloud? And so what we are seeing is how do we help our customers in their cloud journey? So when our customers say cloud first, what we're seeing is 4 things, which is I'm going to migrate workloads because I want to burn down my cloud commits. I'm going to modernize my applications. I'm going to containerize them for the long term. So I get the ability to port applications. I'm going to automate these workloads to design for scale because automation drives the ability to take out the infrastructure complexity, take out the interdependency complexity, and scale these workloads to scale inside the data center, across centers, across clouds, across multiple clouds for hundreds of applications. And finally, how do we make sure that I'm reining these costs as I'm going down this journey, my multi-cloud journey? And we're seeing customers go down these paths saying, I'm going to migrate workloads, but I'm going to use public cloud technology. I'm going to modernize these applications. I'm going to lock in on Amazon or Azure with EKS and AKS. I'm going to automate these workloads. I'm going to use infrastructure as code technologies like Terraform and Ansible, Jenkins, and Python to now deliver IaaS as code, but scale them across multiple clouds. And in many cases, we've seen customers saying, yes, I have a good handle on cost governance, but what they're really doing is downloading spreadsheets and trying to find a way to optimizing spend. And I spent a customer today where they're basically building their own dashboards just for Azure. Within Nutanix, what we are walking through with you is how can we help you across all of these 4 swim lanes? So starting with how do we help you first journey where you're in the public cloud, you are trying to refactor these workloads, you can't get there fast enough. And so how can we help you mitigate those challenges? And some of the challenges that we're seeing and hearing from customers, and as you can see, this came from Flexera in 2022, is the app dependency for a customer that's have applications sitting in the data center for 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, sometimes 100 years. Is one app depends on other app that depends on other databases that depend on different locations that users are now built with no documentation, that either the internal teams or the service provider or the GSI is not designed to go figure it out. And then they got to figure out whether it's going to be on-prem or the public cloud, and then figure out the cloud cost for each of those and optimize them, and then right-size them. And all of this for every application. And that's when things slow down. And that's when the costs spiral out of control. And what we're seeing is customers that have taken hundreds, if not thousands and thousands of VMs sitting in the data center, you now have to fit it in to a particular instance in the public cloud. So when a developer chooses an instance, they got to choose a specific instance. In this case, it's AWS, right? For each of these VMs, you got to choose an instance, and that instance has a finite set of resources. So in the first case, it is 2 vCPUs, 10 cores, 8 gigs of memory, amount of storage that you're paying linearly. And many times that linearity is what people use for calculating costs, right? And so every developer that chooses an instance has to choose one of these thousands of instances without understanding the cost that each of the instances do. And then choose the instances and keep it running forever without understanding that maybe it's a rogue application. Maybe on the weekend you don't need to run it. Some of the IT governance policies that has been in the data center for many, many years sometimes are not translated into these modern apps infrastructure or architecture. And so what we are seeing is customers are starting to pay by the drip instead of paying by the drink that is traditionally in the data center. And as those workloads are starting to look at for performance, we're seeing customers saying, oh, I need to choose a higher level instance where we're seeing micro waste, where you may need only 4 vCPUs, but you have to choose 8 vCPUs because you need, in this case, 12,000 IOPS. And that micro waste over hundreds of instances, maybe thousands of instances across hundreds of applications, paid by across 3 to 5 years, causes a tipping point where in the early stages, public cloud is cost effective. But as you take applications across these hundreds and thousands of VMs and put them in the public cloud, either lifting and shifting them or refactoring them, we're seeing tipping point where over time, it just becomes more and more expensive, which translates to, like I said, overrunning cloud costs. And so we're seeing Nutanix offer a technology where we go, what if we could help you get there faster, while at the same time helping you access the workloads and access the service in the public cloud, so that you can still refactor at your own pace. But then you're taking those workloads and running inside the public cloud, but because you're now paying by the drink versus paying by the drip, drinking analogy, the effectiveness of using deduplication and compression for storage, the effectiveness of paying for density of number of applications you can run per bare metal server, as opposed to paying for per instance, where you have to pay by the hour, and then you have to pay for performance in the public cloud. You're paying for hard disk and flash. In our Nutanix running on hardware that Amazon and Azure has provisioned for us, you can run it on NVMe. So when you combine all of that, you get significant benefits, which is, what if we could get you to public cloud faster? Meeting the same security policies that you have today, in the data center, the IT governance policy talked about earlier, right? At a lower cost because of the benefits of virtualization, a la the compression and deduplication and density of VMs or density of workloads per bare metal server, while at the same time de-risking that lock-in of being able to be in a multi-cloud world as opposed to in multiple clouds, is where we're seeing significant benefits of customers leaning in to Nutanix saying, yes, I have a cloud first strategy. Yes, it's taking me a long time, or yes, it's costing me more than what I thought it was. Leaning was saying, our technology basically sits back and goes, if you have a data center where VMs are running today and you have signed an AWS or Azure ELA with the cloud providers, you're paying for two bills. And they're trying to migrate workload from one to the other. What we have developed technology that we call Nutanix Cloud Clusters. We urge you to look it up on our website to get more details. What it allows you to do is to have one billing, allows you portability of the workloads from your data center into the public cloud. It is natively integrated with the public cloud accounts, which means you can burn down your Mac credits. You can burn down the AWS credits with respect to AWS credentials and your Azure credentials. You have a single control plane that extends from the data center directly to the public cloud. So your IT administrator that is managing VMs can now manage workloads now sitting in the public cloud. You can seamlessly move between clouds. So if your workload sitting in the data center, you can extend that into Azure and AWS. And that allows your existing IT administrator, IT manager, IT operator to use their skill sets and the capabilities and the tool set that have been traditionally running in the data center for decades and extend that to workloads now sitting in public cloud. And because we integrated with AWS networking and Azure networking, because again, our thought is how do we make sure that your experience in a multi-cloud is seamless and simple. If you choose to re-architect those applications, refactor the application, you can still do that because you're still inside the AWS network, you're still inside the Azure network. So the extensibility of a platform to go from the data center, across data centers, across public clouds and the edge gives us a very unique perspective of how do we help you modernize your application and extend your enterprise strategy in a multiple cloud world to a multi-cloud world, respecting the fact that your workload is still sitting in the data center. So now it's a hybrid multi-cloud world. So we have the ability to run our software across the 29 global AWS regions across the world, the 10 global regions that Azure has deployed our dedicated host hardware across those 10 global regions, as well as 160 plus service providers and managed service providers to give you the extend and reach to run applications if they don't belong in a data center. So much flexibility that you're bringing with a single license. And so to talk about customers, here's an example of a customer that in just 2 weeks, that an existing Nutanix cluster running in the data center spun up in the public cloud that allowed them to release the fact that, I need to spin up infrastructure locally. They could take that application, spin it up inside AWS instantly for a location that they didn't have infrastructure. We have another customer that basically allowed them to say, I've got my on-prem cluster, I can now extend that, and within 2 hours, my VDI is running inside AWS. My existing IT Citrix VDI administrator can now run it, but now I can spin up 200, 300, 500 desktops instantly. And our employees are instantly able to log in. So that's faster time to value. And another customer in the UK basically said, with NC2, I could migrate my data center because it's taking me a long time to refactor those applications. And now can spin up that workloads inside Azure within the time that they had planned for, rather than going back and refreshing that data center, which is going to be a lot of money. And so where we were able to help this customer was get the performance they expected for the application, get on-demand scalability, but at the same time, reduce the data center footprint, because that was going to be the challenge in terms of refreshing those data centers. And so when we look at what we can do for customers, these are some of the benefits that help our customers extend their data centers into public cloud, whether you are a Nutanix customer in the data center or not. So as a prospect, as you look at your cloud first strategy, as you run into some of the challenges we talked about earlier, these are some of the benefits. The second area I'm going to touch about is containerization. So when we look at our customer and talk to them, they're like, I'm going the cloud native route, but they're building it for a particular public cloud. Not realizing that building an app on AWS doesn't give you the portability to now run that application or the container application inside another public cloud. And the last one is really, as developers build these applications, choosing the right instance matters. Choosing the fact that you need performance matters. Choosing the fact that when you choose this, the cost for that profile matters. When you put all that together, where we are seeing customers is, what if we could help our developers build that container in a data center that are already capitalized? So within the Nutanix software, we have a Kubernetes engine that we built in that's Google Kubernetes certified. But because it takes a long time to build a open source vanilla Kubernetes, a developer, it's harder to do. That's what public cloud vendors simplify. We've now made that simplified inside your data center. So you can build a Kubernetes container inside your data center and manage it just like you provision a VM. We've built a partnership with Red Hat. So if you're standardizing an OpenShift, we want to give that extensibility of running an OpenShift in the public cloud or in your data center. And we built deep integration within OpenShift to make that simple and easy to be managed. We've integrated our Nutanix Kubernetes engine across the various Kubernetes solutions that are available in the market, be it Rancher, be it OpenShift, be it EKS Anywhere, or be it Azure Arc or Google Anthos. So when you look at the breadth, again, leaning on freedom of choice, we want to make sure that flexibility is not lost. But at the same time, as you build enterprise applications, we realize that the data services that were available for virtual machines for decades is now unavailable for containers, or you got to choose individually open source container technology that is from startups or that is an open source. And so we've developed data service of containers to give people and developers that are building apps on containers the same capabilities that is available for virtual machines, which is disaster recovery and provisioning and scaling and cloning and all the things you see here, so that you now get a single substrate to create cloud native applications, a single substrate to manage and applications, and give the IT administrator inside the data center the flexibility to support your developers today, while at the same time extensibility into the public cloud. The third area that I shared earlier is how do you automate these workloads? We have customers that say, as I build these applications, as I look at my existing applications, as I keep a fine balance between data centers, modernize these data centers, my clouds, multiple clouds, my containers, how do I design for scale? How do I use the IaaS, infrastructure as code technologies to design for scale? How do I build blueprints? And so when we look at automation, it's automation multiple layers. Automation across your traditional workloads running on virtual machines or container workloads running on Kubernetes. Exposing everything through an API. So you can now automate everything at the infrastructure level. Using your infrastructure as code technologies, like I said earlier, Python, Ansible, Terraform, Jenkins, so on and so forth. So you can now create scale using your existing developers and the methodologies and CI/CD that they're building, and using that and extending it to Nutanix. And we have our own GitHub location, so you can now use extensible, code that we've built and open it up on GitHub. You can now run runbooks, so you can now set automation for these workloads. And to make it simpler and easier, what we realized is, as IT support teams and IT teams build these applications, they're dependent on so many various teams for workloads inside the data center and across public clouds. That could extend to weeks, if not months. And so what we have built within our technology that we call Nutanix Cloud Manager Automation is the ability to choose what workload, where you want to put it, what kind of integration you want to do with what technologies, allow you to automate workloads across private clouds, across data centers, across private and public, across public clouds, be it for VMs and containers, whether they're EXX or running on Nutanix AHV. And so our customers have built blueprints across 3 clouds, for example, which is Nutanix in the data center, AWS and Azure, and automatically scaled to give scaling for workloads and build blueprints for these applications. So they're completely removing the infrastructure dependencies and scaling these applications and using AWS and Azure, pay as you grow, or the scalability of public clouds to benefit the company and benefit the applications. Last but not the least, let me talk about cost governance. As I said earlier, In the early days, going to public cloud was the cost of doing business, cost of driving digital transformation. I would say in the last 6 to 8 months, cost governance and spreading cloud costs have become more of a focus or a priority or a concern. And the reason is, in the early days, public cloud was, hey, that's the way I'm going to drive digital business. And now cost governance and the CFOs looking sharper at the public cloud cost has become a concern. The opaqueness sometimes of the cloud billing practices, the ability for you to not really know where the money is going, who's spending it. Are you really optimizing that spend? Lack of control where the workloads are being deployed, and visibility of how do you go from pay-as-you-go to reserved instances. The inability to hire staff and give them the tools and technology to go to build a cloud spending analysis. And so that is available to do cost governance so that you have a unified dashboard across multiple public clouds, across your private cloud that's running on Nutanix, and algorithms that gives you visibility and spending patterns. And then setting thresholds where you get alerts based on capacity, based on tags. And so the cost governance now allows you to get visibility, show back, and charge back based on your business practices, based on how you want to automate and monetize your cost governance practices. And that's where we're seeing customers come in and go, I am benefiting greatly because now I can see across my hundreds, if not thousands of AWS accounts, I'm able to understand and optimize my spend and make smart decisions about where my spend is going, report to the CFO that I'm spending it smartly, and at the same time, find ways to optimize that spend. And as customers have gone down this path and realizing that they don't have the headcount and the opaqueness is having them make uncomfortable decisions without knowing where to make that decision, we've delivered this as a service. So we have taken our technology and used our internal resources to offer FinOps as a service that you can now sign up to and get instant visibility, show back, and if you want to do charge back, to allow you to look at your workloads and say, what is the right decision that makes sense for me? And where things are coming in is at scale, public clouds are seen to become more expensive than hybrid or private clouds. As you put more workloads in the public clouds, the reason for that is I talked about microwaves, which is taking an instance or a VM and putting it into an instance where there is not an exact fit. Putting workloads in the public cloud where you now have to use hard disk and flash is because that's what public clouds are built on today. You do get NVMe and premium provisioned IOPS, but now you're being charged a premium. And then if you want throughput, you're getting undersubscribed VMs, undersubscribed workloads. Now you got to prioritize and go figure out where those instances are and optimize them. When you put it on Nutanix software running on a bare metal inside the public cloud, you're getting efficiencies of the bare metal, so you can run more workloads, more VMs, and more applications on that bare metal. You're getting the benefits of NVMe, and you're getting benefits of data locality, erasure coding, deduplication, and compression. And you're running on NVMe storage for your applications that need performance, database applications, and enterprise class performance that you're used to in the data center. In the data center, NVMe is almost the de facto standard for storage, right? Intel is now its 8th generation. They're about to launch the 9th generation. In the public cloud, you're not at evolved in terms of the instances that you get, because of just the scale and availability of what those AZs or availability zones are actually spun up for. So when you compare and take all of that wastage and all of that efficiency in the Nutanix infrastructure and the microwaves in the public cloud and the infrastructure that it runs on, it translates to savings. It translates to, as you put more and more VMs or modernize the applications and use more and more public cloud, as opposed to putting software inside public cloud with Nutanix, 3% savings. That enterprise strategy group actually took all of our data and talked to customers and did an analysis, and they said it's 53% lower cost to using Nutanix. And if you look at what our customers are saying and our partners are saying, right? Our customers are looking to see how we can do more with less than on Azure. And that's from Microsoft. Eric Lockhart in one of the previous slides would have said, Nutanix is the fastest way to get workloads into Azure. And so we are partnering deeply with the cloud providers to help them get efficiency, both in cost and reducing complexity. And these are the three use cases where customers are benefiting from the technology we talked about earlier, which is I want to migrate faster, but it's taking me a long time. I want elasticity for my workloads, but I'm able to spin up infrastructure quickly from a workload where there's not even local infrastructure. I can now use public cloud for peak and seasonal workload demands. And finally, if you have a secondary DR site that's sitting idle, but you've already got these public cloud credits sitting there, you can use public cloud for DR. And so that wastage of infrastructure sitting idle, wastage of licenses sitting idle, can now be translated into savings in the public cloud that you've already spent money on. And these are the three big use cases where we're seeing customers come in and go, as my data is created in the edge, and I want to use generative AI, Gen AI at the edge to figure out what data I really need to optimize and get business analytics on, that data is then extended to the data center. And because of the security policies, sometimes the data for AI, in this case as a use case, you don't want to extend to the public cloud because that's your data. But you want to use public cloud for the right reasons. And so we're seeing customers struggling with monitoring the application system, running their workloads in the data center across multiple data centers, but then extending to live in multiple clouds. This is the complexity. And what Nutanix has delivered is a single common cloud platform that extends from the data center all the way to the edge into the public cloud. So what if we could come to you and say, what if we could provide you a single platform that allows you to manage, secure, protect, and move workloads on a single control plane across all clouds? Enable you to build a modern app once, and enable you to deploy and automate deployment anywhere in any of the clouds, data centers, or the edge. Get instant visibility, show back, and charge back for all your public clouds and data centers so that you get cost governance across all the clouds, private or public. Automate these workloads using your infrastructure code technologies or NCM automation technologies that we have, or any higher level platform that you have, including, for example, ServiceNow and service ticketing and service catalog, ability to move those workloads automatically. And finally, what if we could help you develop Gen AI LLM models inside your data center so you can now instantly use your data and secure data at the edge or in the data center? So where we're coming from is, what does a single cloud operator model look like? That's what we're looking at as they look at their cloud strategy and the transformation strategy. When data is created at the edge, multiple data centers or public clouds or service providers. And this data is in multiple formats. It's in virtual machines, it's in containers, it's in unstructured data, and it's in now AI. And so what we're seeing is we're building out a cloud data structure and building a policy engine behind that. So now you can set and automate policies based on where the data needs to be. Back to the intelligent workload placement conversation we shared earlier. And creating a common control plane across the data structure that we're calling Nutanix Central that spans all this complexity that I turned on earlier. And as we look at the cloud data structure, we want to bring the benefits of public cloud and extensibility of data centers. So for example, we've given and developed technology we call multi-cloud snapshot technology. What does that mean? I can take a snapshot inside your data center, use the public cloud AWS S3 to store that snapshot, and I can now recover those workloads somewhere else. So the extensibility of the pervasiveness of public clouds and the instance and availability of your data in any of the public cloud locations or the AZs becomes a very compelling way of looking at new use cases for a hybrid cloud architecture for every one of your applications. And this is the unique way where we're looking at the world saying, what if we could help you develop and deliver one platform to enable you to run your apps and and manage your data anywhere across data centers, public clouds, and or service provider clouds or edge for any of your applications. And when we look at where we're going, right, we want to make sure that choice and freedom of choice is sacrosanct, right? So one platform, whether you're running in the data center, running across data centers, running at the edge, or extend into public clouds, we want to help you and give you the flexibility that it's not a re-architecting. We're not creating silos again. And so that platform extends from your data center or across public clouds and or across public clouds to give you the flexibility, to give you a choice at every layer. Choose your server vendor in the data center. Choose your public clouds across multi-clouds. Choose your service provider. Choose your hypervisor. Choose your container platform. Choose the technology you want to run it against. And this is where we're coming in and saying, what if we could help you deliver a single platform and federate data, manage data, secure data, be them on VMs, containers, databases, unstructured data, and allow and enable you to automate workloads at scale. So in summary, as you look at Nutanix, whatever your journey is, wherever you are in this journey, if you're in the data center, let's help you modernize where you are today. If the VMware Broadcom acquisition is concerned of ELA prices going out of control, we can provide an alternate stack. If you want to help build a true private cloud, enable a cloud operating model, which is software running on thousands of servers, x86 hardware, we can do that while reducing cost and complexity. If you actually want if you want us to help you accelerate the journey to public cloud, we can do that while driving cost efficiency, burning down cloud commits, automating these workloads at scale, and de-risking lock-in. So you're living now in a multi-cloud world, just like in the data center, you lived in a multi-vendor world. If you're already in the public cloud, how can we help you reduce the cloud spend? Think about rehoming those workloads. So you can now move to a multi-cloud world and automating workloads across these clouds. And so no matter where you are in the cloud journey, Nutanix can help you. So as we look at what can we do for you, we can help you manage your transition through a cloud migration strategy, simplify your operation through a single cloud operating model, manage cloud costs, whether you're in the data center, across data centers, in the public cloud, across public clouds, across hybrid multi-cloud. We can now bring a single control plane to manage your costs, either as a product or as a service. And finally, this is becoming more and more acute, is how do you leverage the existing IT skills you have in the data center today and help them manage these workloads that are now extending to public clouds? And so some of the last best practices, right? Leverage automation tooling that is available today to manage tasks across multi-cloud environment, right? The reason public clouds are very compelling is because they automate at scale, right? They enable you to automate at scale. We want to make sure that same flexibility is available, whether you're in a hybrid cloud world, in the data center world, across multiple clouds, across hybrid multi-cloud, right? Leverage AI as much as possible inside the data center to automate tasks across workloads as you look at Gen AI and how it impacts the business and what are the right use cases. Leverage self-service IT capabilities so you automate a lot of the things and create service catalogs and broker requests across clouds, across VMs, across containers, across the orchestration layer for these VMs and containers. Finally, build that common operating model that really cloud aspired you to deliver that. But as complexity creeps back in, Nutanix is the only company building that true cloud operating model. Get the visibility of your cloud spend and your security policies. In today's world, as you look at ransomware, as you look at zero trust, as your data now spans all these locations, edge data centers, multiple data centers, clouds, data is sacrosanct. How do we help you build a single security policies across all these locations where your data is? And get a visibility into your cloud costs as soon as possible. If you don't have one, I would urge you to look at that so you get some level of cost governance. So with that, I will hold off and go on to the Q&A. But at the end of the day, this is what we do. Nutanix is delivering a single platform that no matter where your data is and nowhere where your apps is, we want you to help run those apps and data anywhere. We want to bring that simplicities because that's what we do. So finally, you want to test us out, there is a test drive. It's really called Test Drive. Go look at nutanix.com/one-platform and take us for a spin, right? Call your local Nutanix salespeople. Go look at our website and get a better idea of who we are, who we used to be, and who we're becoming. So with this, I will pass the virtual mic back to Eric.
Great, thank you for that excellent presentation. Just as a reminder, audience members can still enter questions, and we're going to review some of the questions that we've gotten so far. The first of which is, how do you anticipate hybrid multi-cloud systems will evolve over the next year or two?
Great. No, thank you very much. Like I said early in the presentation, we are helping customers go from a multiple clouds world to a multi-cloud world, right? I speak to customers where they've been down this journey with multiple clouds, and sometimes, and this afternoon in a meeting, right? Their auditors are saying, you may want to consider being in a multiple cloud world and multi-cloud world, so you have the flexibility of moving in and out. That's what we deliver, right? We also, as a company, respect the fact that data centers are an important part of the IT strategy. If you want to move away from them, that's fine. But as you look at workload that may not belong in the public cloud, what does that home look like? Maybe it's a service provider, maybe it's a cloud service provider, maybe it's a managed service provider, maybe it's a data center that we can help you slim down. Because slimming down helps you now get lesser footprint, and helping you modernize them with Nutanix software helps you deliver a true private cloud, which is software running on x86 hardware. Your existing data centers today are running a 3-tier architecture that hasn't changed from an architectural perspective from the days of the mainframe. Compute, storage, virtualization at the application. In Nutanix, you have a single software stack that runs on hundreds, if not thousands of servers of x86 hardware. So how do we help you live in a hybrid multi-cloud world? And that we're seeing evolve is customers now living in multiple clouds, but with a multi-cloud strategy. Customers living with data centers, but a slimmed down data centers. Customers living with data created at the edge, but AI engines running there, sending to the data center for optimization to get business outcomes that are based on Gen AI LLM models, and then using public cloud for the right cautious and conscious decision rather than an all-in approach. So hopefully that answered that question.
Great, thank you. The next question is, what's the biggest mistake you've seen companies make in implementing their cloud strategy, and how did they get past it?
Great, no, thank you. It's a great question. So what we're seeing customers initially is, a few years ago, they'd walk in and go, I have a cloud first strategy, which is I'm taking all my workloads sitting in the data center. I've signed this big ELA with AWS and Azure is because I'm going to believe in the fact that I'm going to get cost saving. I'm going to agility. I'm going to applications. I'm going to transfer them and re-architect, re-platform them, and refactor them in a time frame that I thought was going to be simple and easy, because that's what I believe. But you're taking an application and refactoring them for the long term. And so some of the mistakes is that cloud first approach saying it's all in for all my applications, as opposed to now either cloud smart or intelligent workload placement, which is where do the workloads truly belong? What is assessment for the workload, where it's a predictable workload, does it really belong in the public cloud? Because there you're paying by the drip versus paying by the drink. So as a result of the cloud first strategy, that discomfort of, oh, maybe it doesn't belong there, is some of the mistakes we're seeing customers making. The other one is I went all in and I shared, like it's like in one of the earlier slides, where my bill is out of control, but I don't have a recourse to come back. So I burnt the bridges of where I was going to come from, and now no means of going somewhere else. So these are some of the examples. The third one is understand the time it takes to refactor applications. Do a due diligence of how many applications you have, how many of these applications can really need to be refactored, and how long it's going to take them, how much it's going to cost you. Because again, cost governance, both from an IT perspective and from an application refactoring perspective, is becoming top of mind as we look at this modernization strategy. So hopefully those three big pillars are big drivers for concerns that are becoming opportunities for how we can help them build a hybrid multi-cloud strategy for their IT, for their company.
Great, thank you. The next question is, what are some ways that we can keep our cloud costs down?
Great, no, thank you for that. So I think on the outset, making sure that your developers that are building these applications are taught about how to build applications and choose the right instances, and setting some governance policies to make sure that there's no wastage, which is, I'll give an example, shutting the application down at 5 p.m. and getting on a Friday and starting it back at 8 a.m. What is the governance policy, right? Number two is, what is the right instances that you open up through the self-service, so they're not choosing the highest level instance because they need 64 gigs of memory, but they're just starting to write the application. So maybe they can live with 8 and then set the governance policy, okay, if you then run out of performance, then go choose to 16 to 64 to whatever, right? choosing the right performance criteria, saying if I want performance, then if I choose the right instance, then maybe I need provisional IOPS, then what's the cost? Because for every instance you choose, there is a cost, right? So from that perspective, setting cost governance, setting IT governance for your developers will save you money in the long run. If you're already in the public cloud, absolutely make sure that you have a cost governance platform. Not just go look at spreadsheets, download spreadsheets, look where to save money. Either get a technology. We have one that we call NCM Cost Governance. It's a SaaS-based platform. We can deliver it as a technology, which is SaaS, or as a service, so that you're focused on the outcomes. And the third one is really around driving a comprehensive cost governance strategy across your data centers and your public clouds. And so cost governance is clearly top of mind. IT governance needs to be brought back in to make sure that the security policies, and for example, if data is being created in the public cloud, is the right data being created? Is it your confidential data? Does it belong there? So we have customers that said, I classify my data from C1 to C4. C1 can go anywhere at once because it's non-confidential. C3 and C4 absolutely should not leave my data center. Or if it does, I want to know where it is. So those kind of governance for data being created in zettabytes, and then having the horse leave the barn and saying, I've created the data. Where's the data? It needs to be brought back in. Now the horse has left the barn. What is the governance policy we need to set for the developers and for data being created in these modern apps is a clear area of concern that's going to creep back in.
Thank you. Unfortunately, that's all the time that we have today for questions. Thank you, Pi, for this insightful session, and thank you in the audience for joining us today. This concludes today's webinar, and I'd like to thank you again to our partner, Nutanix, and enjoy the rest of your day.